Okay. We have item 4. Did you want to do a presentation on that, Marty, with the background, or?
Yes, I think that'd be advantageous for everybody so we know what we're talking about. Under my report, under item 4 of the city manager's report, the administrative item, I guess in order to take that up, we technically should ask the clerk if we need a motion to reorder the agenda.
I believe we had a consensus at the beginning when you moved this, the whole discussion.
I'll make a motion that we bring item 4 of the city manager's report and change the order.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passed unanimously.
For background for members of the public and for council, Mr. Wayne Hall, myself, Fred Watts, the airport manager, met to review the outcome of the presentations from the developers that had submitted a request to be considered to possibly lease various portions of the airport. After that meeting, and we did meet for about an hour and a half, I developed the following recommendations to you. First, that you authorize staff to engage an independent urban design consultant who would be employed by the city utilizing airport funds to sponsor a public design charrette so that the community could participate in ultimately the decision-making process that brings forth any changes that would be considered at the airport. In effect, blending the aviation changes that may be necessary for safety and operational components with those desires of the community to maintain some of the existing amenities and components that exist in and around the airport. Second item is a recommendation that City Council confirm areas, Mayor, if you could bring that up, areas along Harbor Drive that the city would pre-designate as inappropriate for development. I think one of the things that Council has expressed today, and I know we've heard from the community, bottom there, Mary, you'll see airport overlay, straight down.
On the bottom tab.
Lower left. Along Harbor Drive, south of Airport Boulevard, we've recommended an area that basically incorporates those properties to the east of Harbor Drive across from proposed Tremonti Vista Park, Brohard Park, and the pier, that those areas be designated as off limits for improvements other than maintenance or reconfiguration of the existing golf course. There were several of the developer proposals that suggested anywhere from camping facilities to timeshare facilities to other resort amenity packages. Frankly, that's inconsistent with some of the past actions of City Council to make that really a public access corridor to the beach, and we would suggest to you that we pre-designate that area as inappropriate for consideration of any development beyond what exists today. The reason that area does not extend further south is because the extension of 422 is the runway nearest to the Gulf of Mexico and along Harbor Drive. Any changes to that may have dramatic impacts from a runway safety area to the existing golf course operations, parking, building areas, and then rather than predetermine those before the charrette process, we thought we should leave those areas on the table to consider different alternatives with the public as to how to maintain the golf course potentially and the aviation uses or what impacts that may occur in the future. The third recommendation would be to set an workshop with the Airport Advisory Board to jointly hear the update on the airport master plan. That the city has been going through that process for over a year now, and we've had varying degrees of public participation. I know a lot of the public has said didn't know anything was going to happen. That's a concern that we've had. We've talked about the need at these workshops on the airport master plan that the runway safety areas may be impacted and the existing golf course may be impacted for several months. And we don't want to have those kind of decisions made without the public having an opportunity to be fully informed and to be heard on what their preferences are. So our recommendation would be that you schedule an evening meeting. Our tentative date would be May 17th. It's a Thursday evening, possibly for the 5 or 6 o'clock start, so that the City Council and the Airport Advisory Board could hear the report from our aviation consultants and an update on that. We had been previously on a schedule to meet our grant requirements and contracts with a consultant for the Airport Advisory Board to conclude their reviews this month, and our intent would be for the Airport Advisory Board to have the benefit of the City Council sitting with them as they hear that final presentation, and prior to the Airport Advisory Board making their final recommendation to Council, which is expected and was on schedule for delivery to you all in June. So the idea is to get out ahead of that processing and schedule. The reason there are time constraints associated with this primarily relate to the funding cycle for runway 422. If we are successful in receiving federal funding this summer from FAA, and we typically hear in the June to July or August timeframe, we will need to respond as to whether or not we're going to accept the conditions that the FAA is likely to impose with regard to those runway safety areas. So it's critical that we hear from the community and from the City Council earlier rather than later in that process, unless the City Council is inclined to forego the funding cycle this year and run with an opportunity for next year, in effect delaying any repaving of 422 for this year. And that's just the reality of the funding cycles with the FAA and state DOT funds for aviation improvements. We certainly can delay that, but delay may mean that we forego repaving opportunities for 422 this year.
Judge Warren?
Two things. Number one, I'm not going to be here on May the 17th. I'll be out of town until the 25th of May. So I would like to participate in this joint meeting with the Airport Advisory Board if possible. But the other thing was that in regard to your recommendation for a charrette, it does seem to me that if this is going to be a meaningful process, that we have to hold a series of workshops possibly to educate not only the council but also the public on what the financial and the operational needs of the airport are. And I'm going through all of those things I delineate: safety and operations, budget, revenue forecast, going out into the future, and all of those things. In order to participate meaningfully in a charrette, it seems to me you have to educate yourself first. So I think we need to incorporate that into this recommendation about the charrette process.
I consider that part and parcel of the charrette. Otherwise, you don't enter into the process knowing what the background is.
As long as that's part of your recommendation, I agree. Thank you.
When's the last date that we can have backing up? If Judge Moore isn't going to be here, do we have enough flexibility that we can do it on a different date?
I would be available. I mean, I'm leaving town on Saturday, but I would be available starting on the 25th.
Okay.
And I will just be gone over the Memorial Day weekend, that area in there, Friday and Tuesday.
Actually, I'll be out the 24th, 5th, and 6th.
Yeah, I'm going to be out of state. So.